Hey everybody, it's Dan Kahn. Before we get to this week's episode of Only the Strong Survive, I want to tell you about a really exciting piece of news we have coming from Kahn Media. We are very proud to announce that we have launched a new sister company called The Garage Agency. And The Garage Agency, or TGA, is specifically designed to take all the lessons that Kahn Media has learned over the last 20 years, helping companies from major automotive manufacturers and OEMs to some of the most famous and important aftermarket brands and performance brands in the world. And we're applying all that knowledge to help small and mid-size local and regional collision repair shops and auto body shops. So the Garage Agency, that is our entire intent, is we help auto body and collision repair shops at the local and regional level fill their bays, get more customers, get more leads, and earn more business. And we do that through website development, digital marketing, email drip campaigns, the whole ecosystem required to get people to give you a call, go on your website, fill out a lead form, bring their car in and get it repaired. So we're excited. We are very passionate about helping local and regional small businesses. This is something we've been doing for many, many years. Now we're doing it more formally under this new group. We've got a great leader that we brought in from one of the biggest names and brands in the entire collision repair industry who's coming in to help us. And we're also bringing in all of our department leads from Kahn Media to assist as well. These packages are affordable, they're reasonable, they're fast. And if you pick one and turn on, you will have more calls, more leads, and full bays very, very quickly. So we're really excited about this. It's called The Garage Agency. You can learn more by going to thegarageagency.com or just hit us up on social. We're on all the major social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, The Garage Agency. Thanks, and enjoy the episode. This is Only the Strong Survive, a podcast powered by Kahn Media, where we dive deep into the world of business, leadership, and innovation. I'm your host, Dan Kahn, and I'm honored to have you join us today. So let's get ready to learn some survival skills together. Hey everybody, welcome back to Only the Strong Survive, powered by Kahn Media. I'm your host, Dan Kahn, and today's guest is Johannes Crepon. Johannes is the founder and CEO of Paramount Data Management, or PDM, a company that has fundamentally changed how manufacturers manage, standardize, and distribute their product data. If you've ever heard of ACEs and PIs or dealt with SEMA data standards, you know how complex and fragmented product data can be. And Johannes built automation around that problem in a process that has helped manufacturers streamline operations, improve distribution, and accelerate direct-to-consumer growth. If you just listen to everything I just said and don't know what I'm talking about, let me try and explain it. And I'll also kind of flag that I've known Johannes a long time. We do not work together directly, but we do work on similar projects and on the same clients all the time. We were very fortunate, I think, to be one of some of our clients were some of Johannes's early clients. We share a lot of clients. Again, there's no monetary exchange happening here. He's just somebody I admire in the industry. He built a really successful company that does a really hard job. And so I wanted to kind of give him the opportunity to come on and explain the value of what it is they do. So this will be one of those episodes where we kind of get technical. And I think if you work in automotive or the aftermarket, hopefully it'll be a benefit. But to give some background, early on in the Kahn Media days, this would be like 09, 010, something like that. We had a project come across the bow for a client that was a very well-known retailer that focused on wheels, tires, suspension, and brakes, mostly for the Porsche market. And they said, hey, we want a new website and we want it to be e-com. And this was before there were really data standards established industry-wide. And we didn't understand how complicated that would be with like your make, model, fitment drop downs on a website. So if someone said, okay, I've got a 2006, 911 turbo, what kind of wheel options and maybe like suspension options do I have? So we bid on it straight, just building a site, and then started getting product data from 2 or 3 suspension companies, 2 or 3 brake companies, half a dozen wheel companies. And we figured out pretty quickly that even charging 6 figures for this website, we were going to be upside down because the data was such a tangled mess. We couldn't figure out how to get the standards to play well with each other. We ended up actually having to walk away from the project, giving the money back. It was a real heartbreak. So fast forward a few years, we were helping another client with a project, Ring Brothers, who I think most of you guys know, and we've had them on the show. And they said, hey, we need to figure this out. And we had met Johannes at a trade show, and his company was, I think, fairly young at the time. And he stepped in and crushed it for him and continues to do so. And we've worked on a lot of stuff since. So Johannes, first of all, welcome to Only the Strong Survive. Thanks for being with us.
Awesome. No, thanks so much for having me. I'm flattered by the introduction, and also, very excited to be hosted here on this podcast, and excited to geek out about product data.
So I guess to start, before we get into the details of what it is you do and why it's so critical, give us some background on you as a business owner and an entrepreneur. Kind of where, how did you get started in all of this?
Yeah, so PDM is my second venture. We started 2017, 2018 is when we came to market, and the business I started prior back in 2005 was an e-commerce company back in Germany. I'm originally from Germany, moved to the US in 2019, kind of primarily with PDM being the reason for that. But that e-commerce company in Germany is specialized in selling parts for American vehicles. So it was a niche area. And we started back in, so the reason I started the business was because I spent 1 year during high school with an exchange family in Pennsylvania. And my host father was restoring classic American cars. So it kind of, I got bit by the bug back then, and it was exciting to dabble in that space. And so when I started the business in 2005, we were focused on hot rods. So like really going back to the 30s and like your full frame suspension kits, crate engines. But I mean, talk about a niche back in Germany trying to sell hot rod parts. So eventually we moved to the classic Mustang was what really opened up a larger market. And the company grew really well, and so we wanted to expand and say, okay, let's not just focus on Mustang parts. Let's expand and focus on more or less any part that an American vehicle may need in Europe. And that's still a niche. I mean, there aren't that many F-150s out there. There aren't that many Corvettes or Camaros out there. And a bottleneck in growing the company has essentially always been the availability to efficiently add more products to the e-com site. So very consistent with your story that you shared about the Porsche reseller. It's kind of funny. We're like switching countries and switching vehicle origins. So very similar to that story. The lack of an efficient way to manage product data, or just in general really connecting efficiently with suppliers was a bottleneck that I experienced, and where I said this can't be, like, there must be a solution for that. And so in around 2013, we I would say discovered ACES and PIEs for us and said, hey, this sounds great. It's a data standard, and many of our suppliers were promising they had data available in that standard. So we underwent, talk about a six-figure expense. We underwent a big project internally with that company, restructured the ERP system. We built our own PIM system back then, product information management system, internally in that company, because nothing existed to really consume that data and make it then available on the website. So everything was built, and we pressed play, and nothing worked, because we got all this great ACES and PIEs data, but it was a hot mess. I mean, data was in fields where it shouldn't be. Data was missing that was expected to be there. So even there being a standard, it wasn't utilized in the right way, quote unquote, to really serve the purpose that for which it was intended. So we were then stuck with a new website, to completely overhaul backend IT infrastructure, and still couldn't accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. And that's where the idea for PDM originated. And I said, okay, it's not that the companies don't want to do it; they can't. They don't have the technology. They don't have the expertise, and it's not they're not IT companies. I mean, suppliers in the automotive aftermarket are great at building amazing products, building great brands. You help them out at doing so, but they're not software companies. They're not like database companies. So the idea behind PDM was, and kind of like an early slogan back then was, like, you shouldn't know cataloging, you shouldn't know ACES and PIEs. That's what PDM is for. All you have to know is your product. You should know why your product is the best for a certain customer. You need to be able to articulate that. And the funny thing is, they already do it. They build beautiful brochures. They create beautiful PDF catalogs, and there's still a place for those. So they know how to talk about their brand. They have a great logo. They have great photography. It's all there, but it's just not. It wasn't back then available in a format that a downstream consumer of that information could efficiently do that. And so this is the origin of PDM, and I wanted to bring a solution to the market that made it easy for suppliers, particularly in the like SEMA space and the performance restoration space. That's where we started, but we have since evolved into the hard parts aftermarket on the Apex side. And so as long story short, that's the origin of PDM.
So backing up a second, and that's a great origin story. For those who are listening and they don't know what ACEs and PIs means or what that is, can you explain? So that stands for applications and products, I think, right? Is that right or no?
Correct. Yeah. So the ACEs and PIs standards is authored by the Auto Care Association. Probably more of the people in your audience are more familiar with SEMA. As the association over the performance aftermarket. And then there's the Auto Care Association, which is a similar association, but their members are more the hard parts, and it's they have the boring stuff that everyone needs, and SEMA has the cool stuff that no one needs but everyone wants. So those are the two associations, and then so ACEs and PIs is administered by the Auto Care Association, and essentially it's a file format. There's an ACEs file and a PIs file, so it's a specific file format that is, again, standardized to make the communication between a brand, a supplier, and their customers, the resellers, retailers, etc., easier. And then the biggest value in the standards is actually not those two files, but it's the underlying databases. So you have multiple databases, and there's a ton of acronyms here. So you have the VCDB, the PCDB, the QDB, the PADB. So those are all databases that essentially help you to describe a product in a standardized way. So one example is Mercedes-Benz. You may say Mercedes, I may say Mercedes-Benz, and I spell it with a hyphen. And a third person may say Mercedes-Benz and spell it without the hyphen. And the fourth person say it's just a Merc. So whatever. So there are different ways of saying the same thing. And the true value of those tables that roll up into the two files is that we all speak the same language. So if there's supplier A, B, and C, and they send their data to a distributor, to a retailer, it arrives at that distributor or retailer, and they always know, or they have the confidence that the content is spelled in the same way. So this is what the standards are. And again, ACEs is for the application side, and PIs is for the product side. So in the PIs file, you're describing the product. So in your background, I think that's a pulley in the upper right. So that pulley has a diameter of 6 inch. It's made out of aluminum. The pilot hole is 2 inch, and it has 6 holes? 6 holes. So that's the PI side. You're describing the product, and now you need to describe what this product actually fits on. So that's the ACES side. So now you're saying, I have this pulley, and that's just the part number. All the details are in the PIs file. You have the part number, and you're saying this part number fits on all 302 engines prior to 84, and all 289 engines, and all 260 engines. I'm more in the Ford world.
Yeah, so I can tell. Okay,
those are my references there. So you're describing what that product fits on, and then the combination of those two files or sets of information then allow you to run an e-commerce site, allow you to run a B2B portal to look up a product, because and fairly in the world of AI, this is going to change, is my prediction, that we're not going to have 7 drop-down boxes to select your make, model, year, and engine and all that stuff. But essentially, again, if you look at how it's commonly done right now and has been for the last 10, 20 years, you have those vehicle selectors. So the ACES data drives the vehicle selectors. It allows you to filter for a vehicle. And then once you made that vehicle selection, you end up with a set of part numbers. So if you enter an e-commerce site in the automotive space it has anywhere from, let's say, 30, 40,000 part numbers all the way up to 5 million. And I mean, if you count Amazon in, they probably have 20 million part numbers in there that technically fit a vehicle. But let's just say 5 million as like a number. Once you put in your vehicle that is driven from an ACES file, you get down to 20, 30, 40,000 SKUs. You still need additional information to understand what do you want to buy. So back to the pulley example. Well, maybe do I want the steel pulley or the aluminum pulley? Do I want it to be 6-inch in diameter or 5-inch in diameter? So the ACES side helps you to filter down into your universe, out of the universe of all products that are available. And then the PICE data really helps you to identify that last bit that is necessary for you to make the buying decision.
That's really well explained. Thank you. So I guess to get to PDM now, I mean, I remember in the early days of ACES and PIs, we had a client that was a pretty well-known at the time cold air intake and air filter company that kind of got swallowed up by their competitor and doesn't really exist anymore. But I remember they were early on to this thing and they said, hey, we need to adapt to this standard. And they took a senior guy off their sales team and basically put him in front of a computer with a spreadsheet and said, go. And he worked on that for a year, like as a full-time job, just load sheets, just working on like line after line after line. I'm going like manually. And I remember at the time thinking, my God, that is, first of all, you got a hell of a loyal employee who's willing to do that for a year. And second of all, how this guy hasn't like blown his brains out is beyond me, because that's,
he must have had something on him.
Yeah. So you basically wrote software, right, that can kind of help automate a lot of that. How does that, first of all, how did you do? I mean, as a guy who built a e-com website selling Mustang and American car parts to that, how did you figure out how to do that? Did you just go find developers? Did you teach yourself? And how did you figure out how to write software that could sort of automate this process?
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't claim to be the technical mastermind behind the software per se. No, I had or still have actually a co-founder in the company. He's a little more in the background, but he is the technical mastermind behind everything as it started. And I mean, so the what we saw, again, like having lived through being on the receiving end of data, we received a lot of files that were just horrendous. I mean, frankly, like you were loading it, and once you then saw the data, I was literally questioning myself, like, how can that company that just sent us that file represent their products in such a way? Like, are they? Like you could clearly tell that. I mean, they either didn't care about like actually having good data in the files because it was just like check the box situation. We need to have ACES and PIs, or, and that's what I want to believe, they wanted to, but they just didn't have anything that made it easy for them. And exactly to your point about the Excel files, that is what we found to be one of those big challenges, is that in the early days, as like ACES and PIs, particularly in the performance aftermarket, was promoted, the only ways really to get an ACES and PIs file was by filling out a spreadsheet, as you explained, and then that spreadsheet was taken by there were a couple of companies, maybe 3-4, was taken by a company and then converted, quote unquote, into an ACES and PIs file, and that's just where that big disconnect was. So for once, the spreadsheets typically had 80 columns because I mean, PIs has 300 fields that you could fill out. So they already did a favor by whittling down 300 to 80, but still 80. It's never relevant to fill out all 80 columns across all the companies that potentially use it. And that's then where it happens that you have one person that probably would have been much better at other jobs starting to fill out a spreadsheet. And maybe the directive from leadership was every field needs to be filled out because that is better for us than having fewer fields filled out. So what you ended up finding was a lot of fields had the same content. So you had 3, 4, 5, 6 different versions of a title or of a description, and suddenly everything was cold air intake, cold air intake, cold air intake, cold air intake, because the person that was trying to fill it out just, again, was overwhelmed with coming up with 6 different descriptions for, let's say, 1,000 parts. So you got 6,000 descriptions that you suddenly had to figure, again, come up with. And so we said, this is one of the core issues, is that there is such a big disconnect between the person entering the data and then the person actually receiving and unpacking the data on the other end. And we wanted to bring both parties closer together, and essentially PDM was the outcome of that, where it's one platform, and on the one side, literally, if you like say it's a desk, on the one side of the desk sits the person that enters the information, and on the other side is the person that retrieves the information. And we also find that not everyone even wants to consume ACES and PI. Sometimes they want to have like a flat file, or I mean, obviously nowadays APIs and with AI MCP servers, it's so amazing what's possible, or what has become possible over the last 6 months, and what will become possible over the next 6 months. That in the early days and at the inception of PDM, it was really to say, okay, there needs to be a simpler way for someone that wants to do the job to get the data into the system, or into a system, and then on the other side also needs to be simpler to consume that information, because if you are a small to mid-sized reseller, even nowadays XML, ACES, and PIs files are overwhelming for you. There are great plugins for Shopify and for BigCommerce that allow you to not ever touch the files, and they are necessary because, again, if you are a 10, 20 person retailer, which is, I mean, healthy, like small size, like you don't have an IT staff that can really help you to translate those files. And this is where PDM, where again, the original idea was, it needs to be not only easier to create the content, but it also needs to be easier to consume the content. And I mean, we started 2017, 2018. We have undergone so many evolutions as to how we are working with our customers to the point what I just mentioned with AI and MCP. At times, we're not even sending out the data anymore because we do the search querying for someone, because that heavy lift, especially when you want to do AI applications, is hard to build on your own in your own e-commerce system. And but having PDM as that central hub makes it so exciting for our customers and for me personally and for us as a company, because we bring those two business partners even closer together. And that has always been, like, we revived a little bit our vision, which frankly I found in early documents as I started the business be very similar to the starting days, was that my vision for PDM is to connect the parts aftermarket. Period. That's the vision. Taking out the friction and really making it easier. If you have an amazing brand like Ring Brothers and they choose to go in business with any reseller out there, I don't want data. I don't want the exchange of pricing, of inventory, of order routing. Like, my vision is that none of that is any friction. Again, if the Ring Brothers behind Ring Brothers decide they want to do business with reseller XYZ, all they should talk about is which hood hinges are the right ones to sell, what vehicles is that reseller serving, and then everything else, my vision is taken care of. And cataloging still remains, again, ACES and PIs remains a big part of that, but we have learned and are embracing that there are more layers to that business relationship. So it's not just getting a great set of catalog data from A to B, it's actually serving that connection on multiple layers. So that's where PDM again has really evolved from our inception, very focused on the cataloging side, to now be much more focused. And we internally it's referred to as the growth partner program. Really be a more proactive participant in that business relationship, and really take out a lot of that friction that still exists again on other layers beyond cataloging.
You've mentioned AI a few times, so give me some more detail. Explain, how are you using AI in this process, and how are your customers using AI in this process? And how has that changed? I assume a lot, right? Like,
how much time do we have? Right. How much time do we have? I mean, AI is amazing. I mean, it's one of those. It's like the internet all over again, in a sense of what it really means, I think, to how business is being done and to the world. And there are kind of going with your questions, there are so many different layers to it. So we heavily use it internally just to make ourselves more efficient. I mean, it's amazing what it can do across a variety of activities, whether it's on the go-to-market side, helping with marketing, helping with sales, whether it's on the engineering side, helping the engineers to become more efficient. So internally, it's definitely a focus area to make everyone that's on the team aware of it being a tool that they should utilize. And then on the customer side, I would say it's a little bit like the gold rush. Like people know there's something new shiny out there. Some don't know even where it lays. Like where do they need to go to? And then for the people that know where to go, they don't know how to actually utilize the tools to filter out the gold or get it out the ground. And so we are working with our customers on, I would say, a couple of different layers. There is definitely very core to our activity. AI is important, or meaning the core of our activity being the cataloging work. AI is important to be considered in some of the content that you are creating. So if you run an e-commerce website, so AEO is the new SEO. I'm sure you and your practice are all over. I get your newsletter, so I read about it very frequently. So, well, maybe can I play that question back to you? Like on the AEO side, how do you currently work with your customers on that front?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of a similar answer, I suppose. I mean, internally, we have had to adapt AI as an efficiency accelerant very, very rapidly. So, I mean, we do an all hands meeting about every 3 to 4 months in person at our LA office. And the last one we did back in fall, the entire 2-day meeting was devoted to, one day was internal AI training. So teaching our teams how to build their own GPTs and how to work in all the different major LLMs for their own efficiencies. So as an internal process improvement. And then the second day was on AI, AI visibility. So basically GEO. So, helping all of our team rather than just our marketing team understand. And for us, as a marketing agency, the Venn diagram of SEO, which is mostly driven by earned media, which is where we've played for 20 years, and GEO, there's about 80% crossover. It's actually very close. So it hasn't been so much teaching people on that side of it new tricks, so much as helping them understand that they're still doing a lot of the same tasks for a similar purpose.
Yep.
But it's retraining the mindset. And it's, in my public speaking, I'm spending a lot of time trying to explain to audiences that don't totally understand where this is all headed yet with AI shopping and agentic AI, that the era of trying to send every consumer to your website is rapidly coming to an end. You need to be able to go to the consumer wherever they want to buy. So if they want to buy from your website, great, let's do it. I mean, by the way, just like you, we're in the business of trying to send people to companies' websites. That's typically our goal. But it's like, look, if we can help them buy a product on Meta or Google Shopping or the TikTok shop or Amazon or whatever, we're at this point, we're omnivorous. We want to help companies sell parts, and wherever that LLM sends them, even if it's within the LLM, which is basically here or close to it, we want to do that. So it's been sort of a both answer, I guess, both internal process and also, trying to help everyone understand how to help clients. With your business, with PDM, I'm curious. So it sounds like you're using it for the obvious stuff, sales and marketing for PDM, operational improvements at PDM. Are you also using it for the actual formatting of data within your software? Has that been able to take over some of the either kind of meat space work or software work?
Yeah. So you mean like when supporting our customers in the activity of using? Yeah, no, 100%. So in development, but we have a wait list open for people to sign up, but we have our own internal agent called Axel, internal being it's in the platform, and the whole thesis is that AI now has been around for a couple of years, quote unquote, in a mainstream usage. And in the early days it was, this is great. Like you can create a better marketing description. You can do something, something like that. But it was like, is that really that pivotal? Like, is that going to like reshape how cataloging is working. And no, not for that particular use case. It's helpful, but it's like it's not the big throw. So where we're going with our agent is really that is intended to be a coworker to you using PDM, because what we, and this is again so exciting. I think how the industry is evolving with this, and how AI can really be a facilitator to accelerate that evolution. Because traditionally, one of the core reasons that catalog or ACES and PICE data has not been great is because, similar to your example with the gentleman that had to fill out the spreadsheet, it's a very isolated activity. So you have marketing is all over the website. So if you're a supplier, most likely your website looks great. You put a lot of work into describing the products on your websites. You go through the effort of loading the second, third, and fourth image. And then at some point, kind of after lunch on Friday, you got to take care of those ACES and PICE files really quickly to get them out the door. And we see that almost across every company, that those activities are handled in a very isolated form. And so for a long time, we always wanted to bring sales closer to cataloging, product management closer to cataloging, marketing closer to cataloging, because, I mean, they all are after the same outcome. They want their customers to buy more products. And the cataloging is typically an afterthought. It's typically kind of, again, it's an operational necessity that is being done. And with that agentic approach that we are taking, the vision is really that you as the salesperson, you don't know cataloging. And again, even though we say you don't have to, like, it still feels like a very heavy task for you. But if you could have someone internally being an agent that can actually surface a lot of the information without you having to, like, talking about not using the core system, without you having to know PDM or know even what some of the things mean, like VIO, like vehicle in operations. It's a very important metric for a lot of suppliers to manage their, like, cataloging activity. But once it goes up to the sales side, they're typically used to like final outcome reports. Like, they don't know all the nitty gritty underlying aspects. And again, nor should they, because they are selling. Like, that's their core job. So with an agentic approach, we want to achieve that more people within a company have access to the catalog data, so it becomes a bidirectional activity. Let's say the marketing person creates a new campaign, and they create a beautiful banner that goes on the website, and it's a promotion that also their customers should benefit from. So let's say it's the Black Friday promotion. You get a T-shirt with a mail-in rebate. I don't know, like, they're the weirdest things that people come up with. Well, if you don't communicate that to your customers, they don't know about it unless they coincidentally go to your website and see that banner and take it for their own homepage. So right. What if the marketing person could Slack Axel or whatever and say, hey, like, we have this promotion, please make sure that this banner reaches our customers through our data pipeline. And Axel takes the data, puts it into, it wouldn't be living on a product level, it lives more on the marketing copy level, but would then take that, and there could be an expiration date to the banner. Yeah. Exactly, and then it's out there. And so this is where we see AI being a great way to, again, it helps with writing copy, and but similar to how I started PDM, I didn't want to be incrementally better than what was out there. Like, I really wanted to make a difference, and that's where Axel for us really is that opportunity where it allows us to reinvent ourselves almost.
Same, and I think it's really exciting. And you kind of just referenced kind of the when and the why of starting PDM. So let's go back. Let's take a big step back for a second, because one of the questions I had was, like I mentioned at the start of the show, you and I met, I think, fairly early on in PDM's existence. And having lived through kind of the pre-PDM era when all these companies were first, there was no standard and they were trying to figure it out. And I mean, I remember going back to that Porsche wheel shop story from the beginning of the show. I remember being just shocked, and you kind of referenced this too about some of these well-known companies where we were getting quote unquote product data from, and I won't name names, but these are like very large, very well-respected companies in the suspension space, the brake space, the wheel and tire space. I mean, these are global brands. And the data was a dumpster fire, and it was so inconsistent, and like not just inconsistent brand to brand, it was even inconsistent from one company, just field to field, category to category, part to part. Okay. Some fields are filled out, some fields aren't. Language is inconsistent. Marketing copy is missing half the time. I just don't know that it was really a priority for a lot of companies. They didn't really understand it. Back then, most companies didn't sell direct to consumer. So they also didn't understand that, like, I mean, I think now it's a little different because they're selling stuff on their own websites, right? So they're actually having to experience this at some level. But back then it was kind of like a let the dealer figure it out kind of an issue. When you show up at, I assume SEMA or a trade show was probably one of your first steps. So when you come up with an idea for PDM, you launch the business, you show up. You know, our industry is, I mean, I love our industry and it's like my home. But I have to also admit that we tend to be a little closed off, and sometimes new ideas are not always warmly embraced at first. So what was that like? How do you walk onto the show floor and start talking to people about what you do? Like, first of all, did they even understand? And then if they did, how did you get them to buy into a service that facilitates a standard that they may or may not even want right away?
Brings back painful memories, but I mean, I would say the biggest challenge that we had in the early days was that people said, I've done this already. Like, I've gone through that 1 year pain of filling out a spreadsheet. It hasn't done me any good. Go away with whatever, like, even if you promised the world to me on what it's going to be like, I have scars. I have deep scars from having done this once before. And so that I think was the biggest challenge in the early days, is demonstrating that it can be done well, and if it's done well, it's a major pivot for your company. I mean that took a little bit of time, but we're proud to be like working with some of the most recognized brands on the supplier side, and with all the leading resellers and retailers on the reseller side, so distributors, retailers, etc. And I mean, we now have it black and white, that if you do it well, there is value in it, and the ROI is so apparent. But it did take, in the early days, it did take convincing to I would say give it another shot, because that's a little bit what I said earlier in that same vein, is that, I don't know if I'm making myself enemies with that, but even the most perfect ACES and PIEs file doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to make you successful, because the standard itself, it's so valuable to the industry, but it's not the solution on its own. It does require a technology platform, and I mean, I pride myself to like really have that made my mission to say, I want to be that technology platform to really still connect those two companies. So there were, I guess, to really trying to answer your question, there were just a lot of unfulfilled promises in data standards, in cataloging, and to your point, the industry was used to, if you're a supplier, like the dealers, like your sellers will take care of it. Like, it wasn't common that you were expected to have a picture of every part. Like that just wasn't a thing in the past, quote unquote. So that shift as well from the retailers, distributors putting more of the burden onto the suppliers kind of happened in parallel to there not being a great way of doing it. So it became, there was a lot more new work. There was a lot of work because it wasn't easily accomplished. So, and that is what was really hard in the beginning. But as I said, once we were able to demonstrate the value that you get very quickly out of accomplishing it. And frankly, there's still sometimes companies are made believe that their data is great because certain badges are being slapped on them, and that is counterproductive because it's said to be a great data set, but then they still don't get the value out of what they were expecting. And the expectation is, again, they've spent all that time and all that money, and it's mostly time because in the grand scheme of things, it's not that expensive. They spend all that time in like preparing the data, and then it reaches a certain level of accomplishness. And then a receiver gets it and says, yeah, this isn't really that great. And I still need, let's not use the aces and pies. Please fill out the spreadsheet. That's heartbreaking news to someone that just, has spent a lot of time in completing the files. And this is why we, for instance, there is no blanket, you have great data statement that we can give you. Like we really go by channel. If you sell to retailer A, and if you sell to retailer B, and if you sell to marketplace 1 and marketplace 2, all 4 will have different requirements. Yes, 80% is the same, or 90% may even be the same, but the last 10% is unique across every channel. And there is even though aces and pies being a standard, it doesn't mean that you have one file that serves them all. There are still unique requirements. And frankly, if you're really serious about it, you can optimize for every channel. So suddenly the 80-90% that you could distribute to all channels, you may want to dial that back to just 70% is the same across. So you're not going to change your UPC code. Like if you are a branded product, part number 1, 2, 3, it has a UPC code. Doesn't matter whether you sell it on what channel you sell it, but different marketplaces have different requirements or different ways to optimize the title, different ways to optimize the content, different ways for images. Some retailers require square images, 1500 by 1500. Others go 16 by 9. You can they will take your square image and put it into a 16 by 9 frame on their website, but that's not going to look great. Like if that's going to be the final decision for the shopper to choose between your product and your competitor that has the right image, the competitor is going to win because it looks better, it looks more sophisticated. The buyer will just have a better experience buying the product. So I would say I'm going rogue here a little bit, but I'm so trying to answer your question again. I think the broken promises before we came to the scene was a little bit of a hill to climb and overcome, and then I think it's still. I love the industry. I like how you said that as well, and I'm going to be in it forever. Not necessarily in the cataloging space, but I don't have any plans of leaving. But so have our customers, and they have been with companies for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and it's change. So maybe AI right now is an opportunity because there's a lot of change going on. So. The cataloging becomes the smaller change.
That's an interesting point. And I appreciate that very thoughtful response. Thank you. I imagine it was hard going. And by the way, we have that experience too. And what we do, I mean, our tactics are very different than they were 10 or 20 years ago, but my business model has been around a long time. And so it's not a new concept like yours was. But even with me, I face that where, I mean, I still to this day will get on a call or go meet somebody and maybe they got burned by a past similar business that didn't treat them fairly and didn't deliver on their promises. And now they're gun shy and don't necessarily want to make another leap. And I have to kind of lean on reputation. So probably similar to what you've gone through. But
yeah,
I think you make an interesting point. I mean, I think there's been this, the media has been decentralized. There's this huge shift towards D2C. There's a handful of marketplaces that are playing in our space now that didn't used to play in our space. AI is this massive disruption. The way consumers, especially younger consumers, are researching and buying products has totally changed in the last couple of years. So maybe it is a good opportunity, like right now, to sort of lean into that change and say, hey, this is the moment.
What we see is that the most successful suppliers that we onboard are when they are coming with a very specific objective. They if the goal is we need to have aces and pies because someone told me, whether it's external or internal, they typically fail because they just want to check the box. And we oftentimes don't even win that business. Like, we're way more expensive than our alternatives. If all you want to do is check the box of having an aces and pies file just sitting on some repository, again, we're not your partner. The most successful suppliers come with an objective. They say, we have the opportunity to grow our business with this customer, but they need better product data. Mm-hmm. It's not about aces and pies, but it's like they need better product data. Or we want to start selling on our website, or we want to start selling on a marketplace, and we need to solve for that. This is where companies are most successful because it directly connects that ROI to embracing cataloging. And the beauty is, while you have that one channel that you are more or less optimizing for, all of your other channels are going to benefit from it. Like all of it's like the results or something like that. Sort of my non-native trying to put out sayings here. All channels will benefit from you taking cataloging serious, at least for one channel to start, and then companies quickly see the benefit across all their channels. And D2C is an interesting comment that you made. I mean, we've had a lot of companies that came to us wanting to go D2C. Like that was the grass is greener on the other side, more margin, great opportunity. Frankly, a lot of them have kind of dialed it back and have found that it's a channel mix, and it needs to be done well. Yep. Across all channels. However, if in your mind, if you want to go D2C, you want to make sure your products are very well represented on whatever channel you choose for your D2C endeavor, whether it's your website, whether it's the marketplace, or a social media platform. So once again, by going down that road of going D2C, you are investing a lot of money and effort into enhancing your brand's presence, which we're selling parts, or our customers are selling parts. So that means that the products are better represented. And now it comes full circle because with AI, and especially as you said earlier, like the path of where products are being purchased is so hard to control nowadays. And I mean, you can buy your products directly in ChatGPT, but ChatGPT chooses the product that it can find the most and best information about. And still to this day, the manufacturer's website is considered a very reputable source of that information. So even if a supplier decided 2-3 years ago to go D2C and they build up a beautiful website, and now it's not either they don't have the revenue they wanted, or they actually dialed it back because they didn't want to upset other channels, it serves them great because they probably optimize for SEO, like you said earlier. Now it's GEO, AEO, whatever you want to call it, and that really pays off the dividends there. And it's so interesting what new channels are important now. Like, I don't know, you gotta search for your products on Reddit. Like, that's a very important channel that all the LLMs use as a source. So if you had a customer with bad experience on Reddit 2 years ago, you hope that that thread's going to go down at some point and like it's gone. That's evergreen. That lives out there. And again, you gotta proactively make your brand stand out on the channels you can control and on the channels that you can't control, but you can at least support those channels with great catalog data and content.
Well, I think it's also a direct impact on the user experience, right? Like the easier it is for them to find the product, find information on the product, and make sure it's the correct product. I mean, you're a car guy. There's nothing more frustrating from the olden days before all this than working on a project. Most people don't have a parts store in their town. They have to order stuff from a catalog or online. You order the part and it shows up and it's the wrong part. And
well, even more frustrating, I tried to sell parts that I just couldn't figure out whether they were the right parts or not. So right. that's but to your point.
So I think taking that friction out is such a critical, what you're talking about, Johannes, to me, and I've had these conversations with clients and sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't, but to me, it's an ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. So is product data important? Yes, it's extremely important. Is the UX on the website important? Yes, that's important too. Is having A+ data for Amazon important if you sell there? Yes. Is getting Summit and Jegs everything they need important? Yes. Having top of funnel awareness, social media, earned media, Reddit, all of it is important. And I think I don't see that changing. In fact, I think if anything, this even with AI, it's that ecosystem is there's just more inputs now, right? So it's more complicated, I think, than it used to be when there was only a couple of big retailers nationally, and maybe a couple of marketing channels. There's just more stuff. But I think it's also like there's now tools like you guys offer to help manage it. So that makes it somewhat easier.
And I think this is where your role as an agency is so important, because it is about that consistent exposure. So there are so many different ways to kind of think about AI and trying to make sense of it in whatever you're thinking about right now. But essentially, AI is like an extremely well-informed buyer. Because it had the opportunity to look at everything that's out on the internet. And again, you as a marketing agency, you make sure that not only your website looks great, but you are well represented on Google Shopping and on social media and backlinks and everything. And I'm probably missing the 10 most important things that you would have shared, but this is what then accumulates, to your point about it being an ecosystem. This is then what accumulates in all those individual tidbits of presence and of UX. And again, nowadays the AI it knows how well the UX of a website is. It has, where before, in the early days of SEO, what did you do? Like white on white, you had all the.
I used to do that.
All the search phrases.
White copy. That's right.
Yeah.
Or keyword packing, and you write these ridiculous articles that made no sense because they were packed full of keywords. And
exactly. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just saying, Google got much better at they kept releasing updates to their SEO algorithm, and again, now you almost have to assume you can't fake it.
Right.
The agent or the AI or the crawler, they are on your website and they can assess whether you are trying to take a shortcut or not, and they'll penalize you for it.
Well, and the technology has advanced so quickly. A year ago, I was using a couple different LLMs to try and do some research for a project vehicle, and half the information it gave me was wrong, and it was hallucinating, and it's coming up with weird stuff, and it didn't make any sense. I had an example literally 2 days ago where I bought a new truck last year, and I bought a rolling, slatted bed cover for my truck. And from a major manufacturer that everybody knows. Bought it, by the way, didn't get it for free. And I put it on the truck. Generally, it's a good product. But there has been this issue where, on bed covers, they're secured to unless you use you're willing to use those stake pockets, which my truck doesn't have. They're secured to the bed with these sort of clamps that are kind of under the bed rail. They clamp the bed cover to sort of the bed rails on the truck. And on my truck, the back ones keep falling off. It doesn't matter how tight I make them. They eventually vibrate, they fall off, and then the bed cover starts kind of moving around. It's hard to, operate it. And I got annoyed enough that just on a lark, I'm like, let me see what happens. So I took a picture of the stupid little clamp thing, and I just went on Gemini, and I uploaded the picture, and I gave it context in the prompt and said, it's a 2025 Ram. Here's the make and model of the bed cover. These stupid clamps keep falling off. Is there an alternative? And it comes back. And by the way, if I had tried to research that on Google, it would have been impossible to come up with a solid answer. The response was, oh, that's a known issue on that make and model of bed cover. They've since come out with a revised clamp design. Here's the link to the website where they have it in their FAQ. Here's their contact info. And if you call them or email them, they'll probably just swap them out for you, which they did. And I'm like, man, talk about an improvement in customer experience.
Oh, for sure.
That's great. And also there is definitely some product data packed in there somewhere that led to that response, right? Because it recognized what the product was by the photo, and it was able to cross-reference that with the replacement part. So I thought that was amazing. And if that's the kind of experience we can look forward to, I see that as a huge positive.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's again, I guess, like what I said earlier, if you take it serious, like you'll go out ahead here. It's such an opportunity for companies now to really differentiate themselves from knockoff products and from cheap kind of companies coming in, etc. Like building a brand, and having the effort that you do pay off, like has never been greater in my opinion. And then, like you said, I mean, that example that you just brought was really just possible because the image somewhere existed in a good enough quality. You had your FAQ. FAQ is a big topic for AEO or GEO. So it all worked out. So that tonneau cover company definitely seems to be doing the right things.
They're probably one of your customers, but before we change topics to kind of start winding this up, I did want to ask: do you think we're moving towards some sort of fully autonomous data ecosystem? Is that on the horizon where these things can sort of update themselves, or there's an automation involved in the process, or is there always going to be manual input?
So it's a great question, because it kind of plays into my belief that we as a company, as PDM, it's very important for us to serve the supplier. A lot of services out there that kind of say, yeah, we can scrape the internet and AI create content for reseller, so they sell to resellers, and I mean, probably great technology and everything, but that's always secondhand data. Like you always get something that some LLM model aggregated out of something that other people created. So that's where I'm so persistent in our strategy to really serve the supplier first, because they bring products to market. So about your question about automation, I mean, unless we have Neuralink in the product managers' heads and everything gets extracted, as a new product gets developed, it still needs to kind of originate and find its life somewhere. Certainly, a lot of automation will then contribute to creating amazing content that would have taken days or weeks for someone to do manually. I mean, we already see that now, especially more so on the hard part side. But I mean, a hard parts manufacturer at this point almost has zero cataloging effort, because the product team decides to build a product based on a certain set of vehicles for which they assume that's or for which they know this product fits. That's information that's kind of like was originated in their R&D department. Everything else downstream is kind of cookie cutter almost. Like it's let's say a brake rotor. It's a brake rotor. Like it's still the same casting material than the other 9,000 brake rotors. You can create an image out of a CAD drawing. It's a brake rotor. Like it doesn't need to be something that is like the actual product. So automation has taken a big step already now into catalog management. Again, I wanna stay on this. Stay on the side or stay involved with the suppliers heavily to help them control that destiny of their product in the market. Because to your point about hallucination, and again, the hallucination has gone away, but if the AI gets fed with incorrect information about a product, that's still what it's going to parrot back to you as the user. So you as the supplier, with however much automation there is, you still got to make sure the quality that hits the market is accurate. But cataloging, especially now, is not the same as it was 5 years ago, or let alone 10 years ago.
That makes sense. Kind of pulling back a little bit, looking back as you kind of started your firm, built your company, fast forward all the way to today, what assumption did you have early on that turned out to be wrong?
With PDM particularly?
Or the industry, or anything, just about running the business?
Kind of obvious, but I mentioned about that earlier already. Like I assume that people acknowledged the value of catalog data, like knew it, and they were just waiting for a great tool, and that it would be easier to get the industry convinced. It's an interesting question. I think there are a lot of pieces in running a business. I mean, I'm wrong every day. So there are so many I'm just saying I'm wrong so much. I'm just glad I'm more right than I'm wrong. But there are plenty of wrong decisions and wrong assumptions that I've made. And I mean, it makes it fun too, because it always allows us to go out there with an assumption and say, okay, this is what I want to accomplish. And then one of my mentors always compares running a business like playing golf. Like you just gotta take the ball where it lands, and then like take your next shot from there. It's not always gonna be a hole in one. I mean, about the industry, I was gonna go in the EV direction and say like that's gonna be like that. These days still have cars that put out 1,000 horsepower. I mean, it's pretty cool. So there was a time where I thought, man, we're all gonna be like cars are gonna get boring, and so maybe something I can be wrong about in the future, but I think autonomous cars are going to be a pretty exciting evolution where we're going to have less traffic congestion and less parking issues, and it's just going to be us enthusiasts driving ourselves. And I don't know, maybe we'll all need to meet up on a racetrack because we're not allowed to drive on the street anymore or something like that.
I mean, McKeel Haggerty has actually talked about that publicly at forums and stuff. He's actually talked about the fact that he sees a future where, there's Monticello and Thermal Club type facilities all over the place where the old school humans can go drive themselves around in their gasoline car. I agree, though. There was a moment there where it looked like this whole thing was going to maybe go towards sort of EV jelly beans, and boy, it doesn't look like that's the case right now, and I'm all for it. So I'm glad even if it's just a temporary reprieve, I'm into it. If you were advising a manufacturer today, somebody who's starting a new company with funding and vision, and like, this isn't just some little bootstrap, like they're a player, they're going to build a new company from the ground up in our industry, what would be the first data related investment that you'd recommend they make? Are
you saying in the like the performance space, or more on the hard part side?
Either one.
Yeah, I think so. I'm asking that question is because I think they're very like different. Like on the performance side, like you need to find your niche. So you need to find like there are plenty of tonneau covers out there. So if you decide you're not going to be the next big player in tonneau covers, all right, what makes you different? Or is there maybe a product that is truly unique? So when it comes to data, I think this is also where AI, like there is so much research that can be done with AI and sentiment analytics and all kinds of things where I think you can really get some guidance there. On the hard part side, it's much more deterministic data that drives your decisions. I mean, there are X amount of suppliers, there are X amount of vehicles, there are X amount of repair rates. How often certain types of products are being need to be exchanged. So when it comes to making a decision there, you can be again much more deterministic in your approach rather than with AI. I mean, once it comes to cataloging, it's actually less of a data topic. It's really more of an integration topic. So we just recently released a blog about like the value of integrating your PIM into your overall ecosystem of other IT systems, because we see this is where you again get the most value out of going down that journey, because you get to, so there is this, and you probably talk about it, like the single source of truth concept. Not one system in your company can be the single source of truth for everything, because different data points originate in different areas of your business. So if that's not true, well, you got to connect those systems, because your ERP may be the single source of truth of part numbers, of UPC codes, of weights and dimensions. That means if in any other system within your company a part number shows up, it has to be in the ERP as well. Like it can't be that that PDM has a part number that's not in your ERP. Don't ask me how many of our customers send out price sheets to their customers, and then the customers get ACES and PICE data, and it doesn't match. You have 1,000 SKUs here, you have 1,000 SKUs on the ACES and PICE data, but there are 100 SKUs that are not in here, and there are 100 SKUs that are in here that are not in the prices. So it's like, talk about removing friction from your, and this is why, again, our strategy is like we want to be more involved on other layers, but this is why and so important. And this is true for whether you're a hard part supplier or a performance part supplier. As you're setting up your company, and again, you're taking it serious. It's not a bootstrapped side hustle. Like, you're taking it serious. Really start thinking through, like, what are the data points that are relevant to you as a business, and which system owns that data point, and how are those systems then connected, so that you don't run down the road and then a year later you're trying to back normalize all of the different systems and bring them back in sync. There's nothing more frustrating for a reseller that if they get data from you and your website tells a different story about fitment. Like, you send them an ACES file and say it fits everything up to 24, and then on your website it also fits 25 and 26. I mean, that reseller is going to be frustrated. You may have done it not on purpose, not to give you a competitive advantage of having 2 more years of fitment data. It's simply because you as a company didn't consider where data flows and how it needs to flow. So I would say it's less about the data that early on. It's really about deciding what infrastructure makes sense and where do you want to end up.
I was about to say, it sounds like it's an infrastructure decision first, so and then populate
100%.
it. Interesting.
100%.
That's great advice. Johannes, as we wrap up, I'm a big believer in learning from my own mistakes. So this is a question we ask everybody on the show. As you think back over your career and your arc at PDM, what was the biggest mistake you made, and what did you learn from it?
As I said, made so many mistakes. I gotta pick the best one that may be helpful. Actually, I think this is a good one, because it's I think so present in the age of AI. Build the right team and invest in your people. I mean, AI has that kind of doomerish sense to it that everyone's going to be out of work. And frankly, some people will negatively be affected by AI becoming more present. But on the flip side, people that embrace it and that don't shy away, they will benefit greatly from it, especially in their professional career. And this is why, for me, as a CEO and with a team of amazing people, I really want to make sure they are not falling behind, because it serves us as a company, but also it's what makes them so much more successful professionally. And this is also where, again, it takes the right mindset. And I would say, from a mistake standpoint, not paying enough attention how I assemble the team, and making sure that the right people sit in the right seat on the bus.
That makes sense. That's good advice. I like it. Johannes, for people who are listening that want to learn more about PDM or you and the work you're doing, where should they go?
So we just redid our homepage, so I hope that answers a lot of questions as to what PDM does. So, PDMautomotive.com is our website. You can find me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me there. Always excited to talk shop. So definitely reach out. And those are probably the two best. My X presence isn't really established, so my LinkedIn.
Same. That's a scary world. I'll interlope there every once in a while, but haven't found a home like I did on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, Johannes, thank you very much for coming on the show. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to Only the Strong Survive, powered by Con Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend. I'm Dan Kahn. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.